My name is Jeff Christ, and this is my Duality. I had a fairly average childhood. I was raised in the ministry all my life. My mom and dad taught us the ways of God and the ways of the church. Really, when life started becoming difficult and when life really hurt was when I was in fourth grade. By going to fourth grade, I'm about 9 years old, and I enjoying life. I remember just loving, being a little kid, and then I come to this very extremely stressed out environment, and the teacher was very mean, cruel to the kids. I remember feeling fearful all the time. Every day I would go there just feeling fearful that, okay, I'm going to do something wrong next, and so on, and which I did. He would put me in front of the whole class and make a fool out of me. He would slap kids. And being that young, you didn't know who to talk to. You were scared to talk to anybody. I would go to school in fear of this man. It's like I knew I had school issues. I knew I had learning issues, but I fit in. That wasn't the problem. It was, and even in elementary, junior high, high school, it was just, I was fearful, just emotionally fearful. There was times I would get so sick that I would vomit in class, and literally, and he made a fool out of me. And so, now looking back on it, I was a very, fearful little kid.
I had left a church in Holland that was running about 250 to 300, and God had spoken to my heart that I should take this small church. And I left Holland and came to Livonia, to a small church of around 60 people.
But little did we know about some of the leadership of that small little congregation.
The leader said, "I would like to see you in your office." I said, "Sure." So I went in and I said, "What can I do for you?" I said, What's the problem?" He said, "Well, in our solar system, there's only one sun. But in this solar system, meaning the church, there's two." And I got on real quick. I said, "I'm the pastor of this church, and I will continue to be the pastor." And so that ended that conversation, but it didn't end my problems.
I found out what my mom and dad were going through, real hurtful times. It wasn't until I was probably 12 years old, and there was a small group of people that just was coming against my mom and dad. Well, my mom and dad planned this trip to Traverse City, and I was so excited to go to Traverse City. They got this cottage for nothing from someone who owned a cottage in the church. And what was exciting to me about it is my brother and sister were not going to be there the first week. So I was going to be the first week just me and my mom and dad, and we had a riot.
We were sitting on the hillside overlooking that gorgeous lake. And it was on a Thursday, the last of our vacation. And I said to Shirley, I said, I think with all of the problems that are in this church, I really don't think I can continue pastoring, that we'll go back after vacation and resign.
I never forget, we picked up my brother and sister and came back, enjoyed the week of skiing and hiking and boating, and you could tell a 10-year-old kid, I just turned 10-year-old kid just enjoying life, enjoying the summer. I was out skiing. I think it was on a raft, and then 1 hour later, the burn happened.
Then Friday came, and I had prepared some beautiful chops to lay in the grill, and we were going to have a wonderful meal with our 3 children and call it the end of our vacation.
Back then, the charcoal grills were more open. They weren't enclosed like this, and it was just a flat, pretty good size, about the same size of this grill. It's like a grill you would find out in a park. There wasn't really any type of charcoal lighter fluid back then.
And we couldn't get the grill lit. We had charcoal in there and it would not light. All of a sudden I said, I know what I'll do. I'll get a little can of gas and put it on there.
And while he was siphoning gas out of the car, my sister and I were trying to light with little pieces of wood underneath down and just trying to ignite it, but we could not light the grill, and we were just really having fun trying to light it. Well, for some reason, we did not tell my dad. My dad didn't know anything about what we were trying to do. And so my dad comes back with a can of gas. He's in the middle, my sister's on the right. And remember, my sister's 13 years old. She has this long flowing hair. I'm 10 years old and I'm standing on the left side of my dad. My dad is right-handed, so you would have thought he would have used his right hand to start pouring the gas. He doesn't use his right hand, but he uses his left hand to start pouring the gas. If he would have used his right hand to pour the gas, and when the explosion happened, he would have either gone this way with the gas, he would have gone that way, and he would have lit my sister totally on fire. Not knowing that there's sparks on the left side of the grill, he starts to slowly put the gas, and as soon as that gas hit the left side, the thing exploded. The fire, I just remember fire coming right at me. He went up and literally doused the gas. It dropped on him, caught him totally on fire because he's really bad all through here. It caught him on fire, and then I'm back there and I got the rest of the gas on me. I remember standing up, and rolling, standing up, and this is what I remember. It's so interesting. When you were pastoring in Holland, and I was 5 years old, you sat us all down. I mean, how many parents do this with kids? But you sat us down and you said, if you're ever on fire, roll in the grass. And as soon as I was caught on fire, I remember that memory. And so I got on the ground, started to roll. I got back up. It's still on fire. Heat's all around me. I'm rolling. During this time, my mom's looking out the second story of the cottage. And as she's looking out, she sees me on fire. She says there was 5-foot long flames over my head. And she saw me screaming. I'm rolling. And she's like, Dad, David, Jeff's on fire, screaming to my dad.
And I went running down the steps, and Jeff came walking toward me, and my husband came walking toward me like like a gorilla would walk, like this. And he looked at me so pathetically and said, "What have I done?" The screams were terrible. The sound was horrible. People were running from their cottages all over, running to help us. And you stood up and said to me, "What have I done?"
Face was burned, my hair was singed, the skin, I was peeled like a banana. I never forget, skin was falling all over from my body, my stomach, my chest, my arm. And I just remember saying, God, why have you allowed this to happen? For a 10-year-old boy to even say that, think that way, God, why have you allowed this to happen? People, the neighbors were around me at that point, and they helped me up. Well, my shirt, it was an experimental shirt I was wearing. If I would have been wearing a cotton shirt or a regular shirt in the day, they said it would have fused right into my skin. But it was an experimental, non-flammable shirt. And for 1970, that was like almost impossible. I was wearing that shirt and it shrunk up, but it didn't stick to me. And it helped keep the fire from grabbing onto me worse. They grabbed us, threw us in your car, and then took us to the Traverse City Hospital. That first week at Traverse City Hospital, they were 20, 30 years behind the times. They would let it go for 2 days without changing the bandage. They would take a syringe with water and they kept on pouring the bandage down and taking a little bit, but every time they would take the bandage off, skin would come off with it. And I remember just crying and crying and crying. And then finally they had to take a whole patch off his back and they just ripped it, and it was pus, blood. He finally fell on his knees and I was losing it. Because then I knew they had to work on me next. And for a 10-year-old boy, that was so terrifying.
They had no knowledge what to do with a burned victim. And by the 9th day, I really was very close to death. And the church sent one of our dear friends who was a nurse in an airplane to come and pick us up and fly us to Ann Arbor, where they put us in the burn clinic, which was a horrible experience, but it saved our lives. The dirt and the gravel was still in my back, which had been terribly burned. I was burned about close to 50%. And the first thing they did, I can remember the doctor saying, "Get the scrub brush and scrub them down."
Back in that day, it was a big, huge room, and what separated you was just a curtain. And so next to me was a 16-year-old girl that a hot water heater blew up on her. And so they were working on her day in and day out. And finally she died next to me. And then an older woman on my left, she was smoking cigarettes in bed. Her bed caught on fire. She was burned so bad, all she could do is breathe out a tube that they had attached to her throat. And so all I heard all night was from that older lady. Finally, I yelled at the nurse, and I said, "Can you shut my curtain? Please shut my curtain." And they said, "But your dad is next to you." I don't know if you even remember that. They said, "Your dad is next to you." And I said, "Open it." And they wheeled. It was a surprise. And I remember at 10, so excited after a week of being there, because it was just, I felt surrounded by hell itself. And after a week being there, I looked over and Dad was next to me. And I said, Dad, how you doing? And all he could do was moan. Oh, just groan.
Jeff got out of the hospital before I did. And I can remember I couldn't wait to get out of there, to be able to see my son and tell him that I was sorry. And when I came back to the house, Jeff came out to greet me, and I cried and cried and cried to see that he was all right. The beautiful part of it all, after the burn, Jeff completely changed.
I never forget, I was probably 12 at this time, and I was working for my dad at home. We were building something together. My dad started asking me, do you suffer, Jeff, with your arm? Do you go through pain? Are you embarrassed? Are you insecure? I said, Dad, the burn was the best thing that happened to me. Spending 6-7 weeks in U of M hospital, now going back to school was very devastating for me, because I remembered the year before. This woman started to meet with my mom and dad, found out her name was Miss Davis. She was now my 5th grade teacher. Well, come find out, she got a lot of information on my case. Coming from the U of M, just had this tragic burn, going into school late. I've tried to even find her. I've tried to locate her. I can't find her at all. But she took special interest in my life. She would even come to my house, bring my homework over, tutor me. And then when I went into 6th grade, she went into 6th grade as a teacher, because she took special interest in me.
Yeah. Okay. Ready? You ready? Yeah, I'm gonna help. Okay. Just tell him to wait. Tell him to wait.
Oh, you just
tell him to
wanted
wait.
to do a walk-in.
We're about to surprise Pastor.
Yeah.
Miss Davis is here. We're at Miss Davis's house. He has no idea what we're doing. He thinks he's meeting his wife's biological aunt that he's never met. So we're about to surprise him. No idea what's gonna happen. We'll see.
Well, hi.
Hi, Pastor. Do you know who I am?
Yeah, how we doing?
Just fine, thank you.
Good.
You sure you know who I am?
Well, she's told me about you.
Why are you so late getting in from recess?
No way.
You're late. You belonged in here about 5 minutes ago. Everybody else is in position. Where have you been?
What is going on here?
I tell you, I'm
you-
going to have to discipline you.
Are you Mrs. Davis? Oh, man.
Yes, and I recognize you anyway. Yeah, we're all been in cahoots now for close to a week. Trying to get this worked out.
This is wild. That blows me away.
That's what we wanted to do. Well, it blew me away when I was contacted.
A year ago, I don't know if they told you, but I used you in an illustration of my sermon. And I told the people, how this woman changed my life at a
Well, there was a lot.
early age. This is crazy. This is wild. You were so instrumental on helping me emotionally, mentally. School and me never really clicked real good, but how you just took time. It was taking the time.
I had talked to the class a little bit before that you had been hurt. I hadn't given them a lot of details, but because you were starting late with it, and you still had marks, you could still see it on your
My
face.
face was all pitted white, like here. But then I remember. I remember showing.
She let you do like a show and tell type
Yeah,
thing.
and the kids.
I asked you if you would like to do it.
Yeah, and the kids, the way they responded was so. I remember it being so helpful. From how my fourth grade teacher put me in front of all these kids and made a fool out of me, and now she puts me in front of all these kids. It makes a hero out of me. I remember you bringing my homework, I believe, to my house and taking that time. I remember as a young boy how much that meant to me. I probably didn't show it or share it.
Yeah. Well, I knew how your parents felt. Your mother was very quiet at the time, but as I say, I knew your father was just beyond himself.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, for a young teacher, it was sort of family counseling all the way through. I don't know what made it so that I could say to him, this is going to be all right. We're going to manage this, because you were still even occasionally out of class to go over to Ann Arbor, to the Burn Center over there.
You became not only my hero, you became my mom and dad's hero. I mean, I just remember all the time class being enjoyable to go to. I was no longer scared anymore to go to class. It was just,
This
it
delights
was
my
fun.
heart. This
It was
delights
fun.
my heart more than you have any idea.
I hope so.
I mean, you talk about things happening. You stepped in at a point in time where I needed a little encouragement
Oh, good.
too. It's
Good.
exactly right.
Jesus says that the trials and the tribulations that we go through, they're all for a reason. And they are to not only strengthen who we are, but strengthen others in the name of Jesus Christ. And you didn't know you were doing that for me. Well, and now I have the privilege of helping others every week. The burn is what kept my dad in the ministry. And then along came you. That's what brought healing to me. That got my foundation correct, got my foundation right. God has given me a beautiful wife for 32 years.
3 sons.
Three beautiful
glorious
sons.
And they're extras.
Two beautiful daughter-in-laws, and we're praying for our third daughter-in-law. A beautiful church, and it was all because of the burn, and then people like you that God sent in our lives is unbelievable. And for me personally, it was you. You'll just have no idea how much you ministered to my life. You will never know. And I'm so glad. I don't like
came in from recess today.
Yeah. Or I don't like surprises a lot, but I love the surprise today because it just
This was bound to go good. bound to be a success.
Well, I love you. I love you so
And I
much.
do you too, Jeff.
It's interesting how much I forget of this and that in my past. I have never, ever forgotten those 6 to 7 weeks in the hospital. I remember almost every minute, every hour, everything. From the time the burn happened to the time I walked out, I remember all of it. And so God, I know, burn that in my memory, in my heart. That gave me so much confidence, knowing that God allowed this to happen. God didn't do this to us, He allowed it to happen. That something awesome was going to come out of this. Because of what I've gone through, it's easy for me to talk to people about their emotions, about their sensitivities. Gateway's become a hospital for the hurting. Gateway's become very sensitive to the needs. And then I hear all the time, I feel so safe here. I feel like people really care for me here. Well, because we do. Because that's what Gateway's about. And I like to believe that because of what God has done in my life as the lead pastor, and because of my wife, it has transferred over into Gateway. 2 Corinthians 1 says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. For just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. If we are distressed, it is for your comfort and salvation. If we are comforted, it is for your comfort, which produces in you patient endurance of the same sufferings we suffer. And our hope for you is firm, because we know that just as you share in our sufferings, so also you share in our comfort." My name is Jeff Christ, and I would still be scarred, but for God.